shift in the energy all of a sudden. You know what that means?
Keep an eye. Keep an eye out.
No, it must be 420. She said go fiddle.
Oh, I see what you mean. Yeah, but I've also noticed that on days when we need to be slightly hypervigilant because, you
Of
know,
whatever.
yeah, I feel like sometimes she gets up and gets antsy. But you're right, she has to go potty. She always does, right when we start. No doubt about that.
No, I think
Hello,
that no,
hello.
she's on. She's posting guard right now, right behind us.
Yeah, that's what I was feeling a little bit more of. That it's more guarding. But you know what? If you want to take her outside, she'll be more than happy to oblige you and go outside.
Yeah,
She does love to go outside.
but you know, with the snow and all, I'm feeling the need to stay right where I'm at.
All right. So, hello, hello out there. I see a few of you starting to gather in our space. Welcome. It is Friday. Uh-oh. Oh, I do have my, I do have my tissue because I can feel a sneeze coming on already. Woo! Telling you, lots of ancestor energy recently. They are extremely ready to talk. If there is someone that you, you know, if you've reached out to them before and there has been no perceivable response, and I say it that way because honestly, some of it might be that you um, aren't open and receptive to the types of messages they're sending. And that isn't a criticism of you. It's part of that whole awakening process. Remember how, as we shift our vibrational frequency, as we allow it to, boy, we are awfully choppy, aren't we? I hope people are able to see us and hear us okay. Do you notice on our end it's all like robotic?
Stop action
Yeah.
animation.
It's so disconcerting. And now I completely forgot what I was going to say. So I guess their job has been done. But I know I was talking about vibrational frequency, and when you've been in a particular behavioral pattern for a while, and then all of a sudden you're able to see it from a higher perspective. A long time ago, when Grim and I first started doing live streams, I would talk about, and I did this with some of you in your readings, because for a while there in the readings it was a theme. And I know when I give readings, a lot of times there is hidden messages in there for me as well if I pay attention,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. And a while back, this is probably 2020, those of you that received a reading from me at that time or tuned in to our 7-ish live at that time, we talked about, oh, for heaven's sakes, you got to be kidding me, Spirit. Don't do that to me right now. That is extremely funny, but also very terrifying to just have your mind go blank while you're in the middle of ready to say some, like, you know, cliffhanger. Oh my goodness. Come on.
Something profound.
Oh shoot. Yes, thank you, Grimmer. When I would channel for folks back then, a lot of times the image that I received for them was um, to tell them to close their eyes. And so you might want to do this. Close your eyes and pretend for a moment that you are a lion or lioness in the desert, on the Serengeti Plains, whatever. There's some scrub brush around there. It's not like it's completely barren. If you look to your left and your right, you'll see that there is some plant life. You can see bugs, there's flies, obviously. You can almost smell the heat, feel the dust. And when you stand up and start to move forward, taking your steps forward. Oh, and I know some of you are seeing green right now too, and that's wonderful. That is our heart chakra being activated, spinning that energy there, letting it flow like a revolving door. Back to the lion. She is walking step by step, not too fast today, not in this heat. The sun is bright above your head. You can feel it beating down on the back, on the even the tip of your tail. The pads of your feet are even feeling the heat. That's why it's best to find a tree, looking for a tree to find at least a bit of respite in this heat. And as you walk, you notice something shifts ahead of you and you stop for a minute and you look out and you can sense that there is something ahead that is moving. And so, with your lion sharp senses, you look out over into the distance, seeing the heat move over the land and the little tiny bit of breeze that once in a while rustles through. And you're able to find your query, what it is that you're looking for, what it is that you're seeking. But as you begin to move forward again, standing up and taking slow steps toward this outcome, whatever this is, this prey, yes, think of it that way if you will, but also the outcome of a situation. That's your focus. And as you step closer and closer toward it, you suddenly feel yourself lifted up right out of the back of you, up toward the heat of that sun. And you realize that your perspective has shifted completely. And now you are a vulture flying overhead with your wings outspread, looking down on that same scene below, seeing the lion, the back of the lion streamlined, walking silently toward that quarry, finding yourself finding the quarry as well, and circling above it and seeing it from a whole new perspective. Do you think that winged creature feels that it has a disadvantage over the lion? Absolutely not. And when you begin to see your life through higher perspective, you are able to put some of these things in the past that no longer trouble you. They're lifted away somehow because it's like you get beyond it. It's not you get over it. I hate it when we talk about getting over, just get over it. Oh boy, that's triggery. But when we talk about getting beyond it, moving above it, so that it no longer controls you, whatever that whatever that issue is that might be holding you down from flying above and seeing up from that perspective, if and not that that perspective is better than this one, but it is kind of, because see, the bird can also land, right? The lion can climb a tree too, but it's a little bit more cumbersome. I feel you have something to say.
To kind of put that into perspective as well in your relationships, in your friendships, romantic relationships, any kind of interactions that you have where you come across a point of conflict with somebody.
Hmm.
When you're in that lion mode, when you are pursuing your prey in that combative situation, you do have the tendency, or we do have the tendency to see things from just our perspective in those moments. But if we allow ourselves to soar above and become that eagle, to look down upon the scenario, keep the connection to the lion, but look down upon the scenario on the whole, and what you might see are some of the phantoms that are chasing past you or chasing your query as well.
Hmm.
You'll see those things that are causing those triggers as well.
This brings to mind, Grim, something that's been kind of circling around in my readings lately with folks. And I've also been seeing a trend toward this again. It kind of comes in waves in the witchy community. But I've seen another trend toward cord cutting.
Hmm.
And some folks believe that I am dead set against cord cutting, and that's not true at all. I am not set against cord cutting. However, I feel cord cutting is used as overused as antibiotics are in the United States right now, in the westernized world. Because I do, because every other person is talking about, oh, I did a cord cutting and it's still not right. Cord cuttings, I reserve those for the absolute bottom, bottom, bottom choice.
That's kind of almost in a way, if it's your first resort, it's bottom of the barrel resort.
Right. And I don't mean that you want to keep going in there and beating your head against, the wall, which is probably what you've noticed you've been doing. Once you're consciously aware of the fact that you've been repeating this behavior pattern with this person, you can only continue to beat your head so long before you realize that you're also bleeding. I mean, you can't keep that up. That's not okay. So when you're conscious of the behavior pattern, then it's time to figure out what the next step is. What is the next step? And a lot of folks think it's cord cutting. And the thing is, we have to remember that if you are in a relationship with someone who is, oh, yes, and I know some witches might argue with me, and that's fine. I'm not right for everyone. I get that. But if this resonates with you, so be it. So, and now I just completely forgot what I was going to
Cord
say.
cutting.
Again, oh, yes, cord cutting. Um, I see it overused because what folks really do is they get to a point where they're finished. A lot of folks do it this way. They get to a point where they're finished with that person. But what they've really come up against is it's time to take that old mirror, and instead of shining it in the face of that other person, turning that mirror and looking at it themselves. We don't like to acknowledge the parts that we play in our stories, especially if the outcome was a poor one.
Now, we're not talking about situations of violence and any kind of violence and manipulation. We're talking about in our everyday normal course of living.
Are we, Grim?
Yeah.
I'm just saying, I'm a victim of abuse, of sexual abuse,
Hmm.
and and trauma, and it has followed me. It's been a shadow my entire life,
Hmm.
and I've been trying to figure out um, what I could do differently, what I could have done differently. I've been through that scenario a gazillion times. First as punishment, then as
Hmm.
trying to understand myself, and always trying to free myself of that energy. I just don't want to be part of that vibrational frequency anymore, other than a whisper of my past. That's all it needs to be, is just, and acknowledge, yep, that happened to me, and move on. And, some people might be like, but Gussie, it was such a huge thing. I can't let that go. Well, you can't if you say that you can't. If you say you'll
Oh, no,
never.
I'm talking about the turning the mirror part. As in that moment,
Oh,
I'm talking about when you're turning the mirror to see how
oh,
your actions play out in causing the
oh, I'm not
situation.
talking about like, I'm talking about what part of you are you afraid to face in that moment that you're afraid to look at? Because typically, I see a lot of this happening. People get to this point where they want to cord cut someone, and so they'll reach out for a spell. And my goodness, a lot of folks don't come to me because they think I'm against it, and I'm not. I just make sure that you know what you're doing. Cord cutting is not to be taken lightly, and it's being taken very lightly right now. out in the spiritual community in many ways. I mean, I even hear Christians referring to something like that. And, it's fine if we're all wanting to move on. And I know that we need to, let go of some people in our lives.
So you do acknowledge there are times for
Yes,
a
I
cord
do.
cutting.
Yes, I do. But I ask you, if you're ready, if you're at that point where you're ready to chop, the connection to someone, make sure that your business is finished, because all you're doing, if you do, is setting it back up to come back next time round. You're not cutting it completely forever and ever. Amen. If the lesson has not been learned, it comes back round again. So,
Either through another relationship, a friendship, through another scenario that plays out
right.
with similar outcomes.
So, as a victim of sexual trauma, one of the, I know you, if you have that experience in your lifetime, then you'll know what I'm talking about. It sometimes will replay in the oddest moments when you're least expecting it, a little clip of the video, a little memory clip that you somehow took as a young person in those moments of trauma that stick out in your mind. I'm pretty sure maybe you know what I'm talking about. Maybe it's not a visual clip, maybe, it's just a somehow a whisper, or maybe there is a feeling that you get that comes over you when you connect that way. But those glimpses, to me, they come like a little snapshot picture, just a little tiny 3-second clip. And in those moments when I've been meditating, I've been focusing on being the adult me, stepping into that space and seeing that little version of me, that little Amy Jo, sitting on that desk and sitting on that man's lap. And I have been going over to her and holding my hand out and offering her to step away, that she doesn't need to be afraid of stepping away from that man. I know he was threatening though, and that is something that I've only recently remembered. That one was buried deeply, but doing my own shadow work, that's come up. That part of the reason I didn't uh, move is because we were being threatened. There were two other girls in the room, and we were young. I mean, young. So we weren't, you know, we didn't have the skill level yet to be able to figure out what to do next. I guess. I think I froze like a deer, and that tends to be one of my habits when I get caught in a crossfire somewhere. Is I if something happens, I tend to freeze, and that's also not a good way to be. So I've been trying to bring myself out of that.
Oh my lord, it just hit me.
What's that, Grimmer?
Why you've never done a cord cutting with that person, with that scenario, with that energy. Why you've done this ceremony that you choose to do.
You're on to me?
I I'm gaining a deeper understanding and respect for your decisions and how you handle cord cutting. Because if you would have cut the cord, if you would have talked to that little child back then and devised a way to emotionally sever that cord from that moment in time, every lesson that you have learned from that moment forward in some way becomes muted because you're not emotionally attached to the event in the same way, not in a
Mhm.
healed way.
Mhm.
So
Yeah, it
without giving away what it is that you actually do, I have a much greater understanding
well
for
good.
it now.
Thank you. I I use the red strings a lot in my spell work, and um so yeah. Anyways, what I was about to say is when I'm in those moments in meditation and I'm seeing myself reaching out to this younger version of me, it's kind of like the rest of the room freezes. The other little girls that were there with me that day, that first time, because I think it was not just once. Uh, I know that we were all scared, but it kind of all fades to the mist, and I just see little me and myself, and I'm able to talk to her, to comfort her. And I'm not exactly sure what I'm doing yet, to be honest, because I'm following Spirit's guidance on this one. But she at least trusts me. She at least trusts me to be there with her. I know Grim and I just finished doing in our Root and Read mentorship class. We've just touched base on the concept of inner child work, and you know, we kind of gave our mentees, for whatever they're called, we gave them uh, some action to take on that. We gave them some homework, and it isn't like it just happens in one fell swoop because you choose to sit down that day and get in touch with your inner child. I don't want you to feel like you're a failure if you sit there for 45 minutes and not a thing comes to you.
I am one that I have yet to be able to truly connect on that level with actually having a conversation with my inner child.
Like I said, it is not an overnight thing. And a lot of times, I think when it does happen, boom, 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 it catches us off guard. We're not expecting it. And I know a couple of you have experienced that very thing where looking back on it now, you're like, oh, that was my inner child coming through. And that's how I kind of perceived it a long time as well.
Does that count in those moments of clarity when you're acting out in response to a trigger in some way? And you
Yes,
realize, holy crap, I know where this trigger's coming from.
exactly. Yeah,
Is
that
that
is you being in touch with that part of yourself.
so? It's
Yes.
not necessarily a talk with the inner child, but it's that emotional
It's
connection
the understanding.
in that moment of being triggered over something.
Right.
In your case, we're talking sexual trauma.
Right.
When you're feeling in that moment, you're able to reach back in time, so to speak, emotionally, and quell that inner child, hence inner calming yourself now.
Right. Well, when I meditate, when I connect with her, and I don't do it every time,
Mm-hmm.
but right now I've got her holding my hand, and we're really not talking to each other yet. Other than I'm telling her that I've got this, that I'm in charge. I still feel angry toward him. I still feel bitter. I still feel shock about it, to be honest. Um, there have been a few more women who have come forward, uh, who've mentioned similar stories with that same person. He is long gone. I mean, he was an old fart when we were like 5, 6 years old. So he is well in the grave. And I've been able to work with his energy on the other side here and there
With a red string.
with a red string and a balloon, actually, but that's another story for another day. But
But you've never cut the cord.
no, and it's because I don't want to let that part of myself just get drowned in the shadows. I want to be whole, all of my experiences, the good and the bad. I just don't want them to affect me to the point that I'm not making good choices for myself
And
anymore. And
really,
and I think in the past, not with you, Grimmer,
mm-hmm.
but in the past, I've made some unhealthy sexual choices based on that somehow that trigger, it's a subconscious
Mm-hmm.
thing, and the next thing you know, you're making some poor choices. So, it is definitely, like we've talked about in the past, like an onion opening and healing. And I don't mean to keep talking, but this was our topic today. Grim said, "What's our topic today?" And I said, "Facing self."
And this is where it went.
Right. And I actually had some things I wanted to talk about in particular, but it fits right beautifully with what we've been talking about already. Did you have something to say?
I just sort of caveat on what you've been saying is there, other than one person of the female gender that I know, every single one of them has experienced some sort of sexual trauma,
A lot
be
of the
it
males
through
do.
absolute physical domination, be it through emotional force, be it through coercion, self defense, whatever situation, there it shocks me, and it really makes me wonder
What the hell is wrong with us
if, well, no,
as a society?
as a, well, yeah,
I
that's not
mean,
where I was going, but yeah,
wow.
but it really makes me wonder, behind every smile of a woman there is that shadow.
Most every person I know. I'm not going to just limit it to females at this point.
Mm-hmm.
There have been quite a few um, folks in general that I would say have experienced some form, and that of sexual trauma. And that's, I would say, it definitely leans heavy in one
Mm-hmm.
direction for sure.
Yes.
But still, the prevalence of it is
Mm-hmm.
astounding.
Yeah, it really is. And so I'm sitting here now on the other side of that, going, well, that doesn't mean that all of these sexual traumas are being created by a select few number of men. This means that many men, in some way, shape, or form, has sexually traumatized a woman. Looking back through my life, I can now see scenarios, and I've talked about this before, where I unwittingly put women or girls, women, in a position that maybe they didn't want to be in.
Like you just ignored the no.
Never once would I have said I ignored the no if I sensed if I sensed that there was a no there, that it was done. There was a done deal there. But I can look at parties that I would attend in my youth and see what was going on around me, and
Hmm.
the peer pressure to perform or to participate in an act to prevent a worse act from happening
You
from
need to get
somebody
in
else.
on the.
I'm sorry. I'm just going off on a little bit of a, it
Yeah, but
really bothers me that there's so many women in this world that have that trauma, but it scares me to understand how many of them aren't looking at their shadow in that regard. They're not approaching that healing.
right, because they don't want anything to do with it.
They don't exactly.
They, and somehow cutting that cord and making it all go away seems like the answer, but that isn't the answer. And recently, it's funny how, and I mean funny, what a coinkydink. I love synchronicity. And there are some of you out there that are not even taking our um, root and read class, but yet you're having similar experiences to some of the people that are taking the class. And so, um, and we're not, we're not, what's the word? Well, there's a little bit of crossover, but we're trying to keep that kind of clean. Um,
Crossover.
like
Oh,
we've talked about inner child work with the root and read
so
group,
it's off limits for the most part.
but we've also just talked about it today because there
Mm-hmm.
seems to be like folks that are not involved with our root and read
Mm-hmm.
are also in some way kind of bumping along, but they're kind of going through some similar patterns, is what
Yes.
I'm trying to say.
Right.
So, A couple of folks have talked about this reoccurring dream that they've had since they were quite young, of being chased or having someone behind them somehow they can't see, and they're frightened. Sometimes there are dogs involved, and they sound rabid and ravenous, and the dreams are quite, they leave you quite shaken. Um, you know, in those moments, if you can muster the strength and the cohesive awareness to stop and turn around and look at what you're facing. A lot of times, what we are actually looking at is a version of ourselves. And once we expose the light to it, suddenly it's no longer scary. It is a part of ourselves that is quite beautiful, that we've been hiding away from for so long because we want to keep this shadow out front. It's like we front with these, and I know that's a triggery word too, but I get it right in this moment. We put this out as part of our mask. Look what happened to me, and this is what we wear. But when we're able to, in those moments, turn around and face that part of ourselves that chases us, because you know what? We do want to be this beautiful version of ourselves. We do want to be vibrant and beautiful. We don't want to be hunkered down and 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 being held back by these old shadows of weight and despair and anger. So allowing our perspective to shift, even in those moments when we just want to call it fucking quits with someone. Take a few moments, contact me if you need to, or Grim, and make sure that you're doing the right thing, because cord cuttings can be, if they're done right,
More effective than you may intend.
exactly, exactly. Well said. So,
I have
anyway,
a quick uh, question here.
sure.
But if there's that many women that are victims, and that means there's quite a few men that are victimizers, us men as a culture need to work on a shadow.
Very true. Well, I think there is, a general acknowledgement that the sacred masculine has been out of balance for so long now
Yeah,
that um, trying to bring it back into balance is, think about yourself on one of those spinny Ferris wheel things that's based on gravity,
mm-hmm.
and how sometimes you have to wait for it to stop to
Yeah,
find its center. We're in one of these
it's a
upswing things.
pendulum.
Yes, it's a pendulum.
But what's that social trigger though that ignites one that turns women into the victims so predominantly and men into the victimizers? There's got to be an underlying social shadow that
I see what you mean.
creates that 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 energy, and then who gains from that vibration?
Oh, Grim, those are some deep questions. My, you're right. Because it is a societal problem. And
Western
it
culture.
isn't just, right. It's that it's somehow, somewhere, something happened, and there was a shift in dominance. And it's kind of been a life of dominance and suppression ever since, you know? And I don't know, I think that's part of why we're shifting. When we talk about the world, the Earth's shifting density,
Yeah,
I mean, that's going to be some of the things that shift along with us.
yeah.
I'm hoping.
But things have to come into balance because nature seeks that. And like Alicia says, there's been a subtle worldwide movement of positive masculinity for healing men, and that's true. But I think that if we started to address what is the social shadow that's creating this paradigm, that shift could happen a lot easier. and a lot more magically.
Well, I do believe that a lot of our sisters, those identify, those that identify as such, I feel we are stepping forward into our power more and more. And I wanted to address what I think that means because I was talking about that with someone earlier. When I say stepping into your power, it doesn't mean like you're Shira out to like serve vengeance on all of your enemies. A lot of folks get stuck in that version of what coming into your power means. But to me, my understanding of it and my understanding of what's next if we choose this path, is that oh, maybe I'm not supposed to say. It was another one of those moments that just flitted right out of my brain,
You know what the original
right out the.
sin was?
What was I saying though, babe?
I don't know.
Oh, for heaven's sakes!
This
What?
time I got derailed with you.
You did. Can anybody get me back on track while Grimm tells us about original sin? Somebody get me back on track. What was I saying? Because it was going to be
The
a good
original
one.
sin was nothing more than a break in that sacred balance between sacred, masculine, feminine, both individually and socially. At some point, that's when we lost the garden. We may have created this realm, this existence, to learn how to exist in a physical reality as spiritual beings, and we wanted to come back over and over again to experiences so much all the many things that living a physical life has to offer. But somewhere along the way we lost track of what experiences we truly wanted to experience, and that was how to love.
That segues beautifully into my She-Ra power question
Okay.
or thought. Coming into your power for me doesn't mean, you know, gaining access to that part of myself that turns into She-Ra and just, smotes her enemies. Because that's not the kind of person I am. Maybe that is for some people, but for me, what I've come to realize coming into my power means coming into recognizing when I stop in that dreamscape, when I'm being chased by that person unknown, and I stop and I face that face, and I see that it's myself, only a beautiful version of me that I couldn't recognize because of the shadows before. When I see her and I recognize her beauty and her grace, she's not even chasing me, she's just gliding toward me. She is the essence of the goddess that belongs to me, to you, to Grimm, and we're all birthrights of that energy. We're all birthrights of it. We're all given access to it. And I feel like we've allowed her to be so dormant for so long. Not all cultures, of course, some cultures have continued, and indeed, even our Catholic faith, and of course our metaphysical folks and whatnot, do practice goddess worship, but goddess in balance with that God energy out there is, I think we've just only begun to poke at that.
Mm-hmm.
And like Alicia said, we've got to start somewhere, and that is exactly true. And this movement toward balancing the sacred masculine and feminine is really, it is a conversation that I know many folks are having. It needs to be expanded on and explored more deeply. And I agree with what you're saying.
That was such a beautiful image that you painted, Gussie, of that thing that is chasing you in your dreams that you're so fearful of, if you were to turn and face it, will see it's nothing more than your truest essence. But the way you said it isn't chasing you, it is gliding effortlessly towards you. No matter how fast you run, it's going to just glide on towards you. But I think the harder you try to avoid it, the harder the path that you're running on is going to be.
That's the thing. If you don't turn to face that sometime, I especially say this to folks that have been having dreams about dogs chasing them or snarling at them or whatnot. Those dog dreams, a lot of times, at least in my experience, have come to mean someone who is receiving those dreams is having a call from a deity of some sort, a god, goddess energy, being called to awakening, being called to work with that god or goddess energy. And uh, many times that dog, if you do your research, um, folks will contact me and they say, "Oh, I think I'm getting attacked by demons." And I say, when you go to sleep tonight, tell your higher self that you want to turn and face the dogs. And a lot of times it is a very dear goddess standing there with her hounds, just waiting patiently for you to recognize that part of yourself that is not just drawn to this beautiful light, but also there's a part of you that's drawn to the darkness because that's where we also grow. We're not just saying, let's just be 100% woo woo light bodies, because that's not what we are. We are a balance of both. And
Hmm. When you're standing in the middle of a tunnel, a straight tunnel, when you're looking forward, there's still light at the end of the tunnel. When you turn and face behind you, there's still light at the end of the tunnel. You
yeah,
got to look past those shadows and fear that you're in a tunnel that's surrounding you in darkness. There's light on both
yeah,
ends.
you do. You do. And you got to remember that sometimes you go around the corner and there's light. Sometimes it gets blinded by the corner depending on the angle. So sometimes you just got to trust your instincts and which way you're going. And that's a real hard lesson.
Well, we believe that we live in a straight line parallel in time. So I have to believe the tunnel's a straight line as well.
All right, right, right. Here, that this card's for you, Grim.
Oh.
Oh, it slid right out. It slid right out when you said that, so I can only assume. All right, two cards fell out while I was shuffling for the group, and then Grimmer has a card as well, and it's not even Wild Card Wednesday. It's Free Card Friday. I don't know. I just made that up. Okay, so the first card that we have,
Freaky Card Friday.
Freaky Card Friday, Five of Swords is the first card. And I know that some of you have a struggle hearing or seeing the positives right now, and I understand that. It kind of feels like all the good stuff happened in the past, and now all you're really looking at is dark clouds ahead. But the thing is just like with everything out here right now in this world, in this realm, it's all vibrational frequency. So if you can take a look around yourself and start to look for the things that do give you positive reinforcement, seek out the things that give you joy. Yes, I'm hearing this one came through loudly and clearly. I know some of you love to read books or used to love to read, and I feel you on that one because I know that some of you struggle with it now. It's one of those lost passions because you can't stay focused long enough to read the full page. Uh, you have to keep reading it back over and it's just not sinking in. I've heard many, 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 many people complain of that very same thing. But instead of criticizing ourselves in those moments as we're holding that book and we're looking at the words and we're reading the loveliness of it and we're absorbing the words in those moments and the characters in those moments. Instead of beating ourselves up, just enjoy the moment of being with that book. Just enjoy the moment, the smell of it. You know, we all love the way books smell, don't we? There's a word for that.
If you lose track of the plot, that's okay, because you can always turn the page back and enjoy it again.
Still make yourself that cup of tea and settle in with your good book. Still pursue those same tasks, those same pleasures that we've had in the past. You're still there. It's just a little bit clouded right now. But make yourself that cup of tea. And if you take a look around, I know there's been a lot of fog, but if you look around, you'll see that actually you have more in your control than you realize. And so be willing to allow those clouds to lift slowly. It doesn't have to stay dark there where you are. Five of Swords. And then the other card, oh, I should show you what that looks like. The other card is the Five of Swords. I'm sorry, the Knight of Cups. Let me see here. You know, sometimes you do have to just bravely move forward in spite of not knowing exactly what's ahead. It makes me think of the Mists of Avalon. Not the book or the movie, but the actual mists. It was almost as if when the priestesses moved through that mist, you weren't quite sure what you would encounter when you made it through. There were always so many tremendous changes on the island because so much of it was based on manifesting and wishes and dreams. And I know that sounds crazy, but I I just felt like, you know, you don't always know what you're stepping into. Sometimes the fog is so thick that you can't see your hand in front of your face. And so you got to move somewhere because standing there, just letting your socks get wet, is not helpful at this point. Moving forward in one direction. And so, trusting yourself to know which way to go and maybe trusting your community with you. If there is um, a certain break in the clouds for someone and it makes sense, I guess. I don't know where I'm going with that. But Knight of Cups. Okay. It's better than staying in the dark. It's better than staying in the fog and the shadow. I know that it's sometimes comfortable there. We go there to hide and we go there to heal. We do. We go there to heal, and that's well and fine. But then it's time to come back, reemerge to the light. We can't stay down there all the time. We have to come back to the light. That's the balance. To grow again, to learn again. There's always learning here as well. So, anyways, your card, Grimmer?
Yes,
What is?
it's the Five of Wands.
Oh, interesting.
You see, it's five figures there, each holding a wand, kind of running around in chaos, almost in riot mode. And it got me to thinking, Five of Wands, the wands being power. What's five things as power? The elements: earth, air, fire, water, and the fifth element, self.
Mm, facing south.
When we gather to perform our magic, we call forth the quarters, the elements. But so many of us forget that we are one of those elements. Our connection to divine, our own divinity, earth, air, fire, water, and self, divine. working together in tandem, each of their magics in balance. And if you want to take it a step further, when you're calling forth the four elements earth, air, fire, water, self, you're calling in all aspects of the divine, of self, because you are of those very elements. You're calling yourself forward. You're calling yourself into power. You're drawing forth the divine connection that is you and stepping forward in balance with the elements of magic.
For me, I find my power in love and grace. I try to find my balance away from anger. It doesn't mean I avoid it. As a matter of fact, I believe that part of turning around and facing those snarling, vicious dogs, wolves in some cases, it's facing a part of ourselves that is so far hidden that we want to keep it buried. We want to continue running from them. We want to feel as if we have a negative attachment or there's somebody put a hex on us or something. We want to believe it's demons chasing us because it couldn't possibly be something that we ourselves need to look at a little deeper. So facing yourself can be one of the biggest things you do as part of shadow work, um, and it also comes in waves. It with each shadow you do, look at a version of yourself. If you are doing shadows without looking inwardly, then you're not really doing shadow work. If you're just cutting cords and letting things go, that's not shadow work. So
Way to bring it back around.
that's what I do. So hey, folks, don't forget that um, tonight at 9 p.m. your time, it is Pause for Peace time. That is something that myself and Grim and other Purple Door witches, including Susan, we've been diligently doing this for several years now, promoting peace and love and harmony throughout the world. Each night around 9 p.m. or thereabouts, wherever you can do it. It's better to do it than not to do it. It's a matter of getting yourself grounded and unwinding your energy, just letting go of the stuff that you don't need to hold on to for the day. And then, breathing in and welcoming in healthy, healing, harmonious energy, letting go of the stuff that's no longer necessary. Find yourself in balance. Do that as long as you want. And then when you're ready to share, let that energy just share in waves away from you toward that energy that we've already been swirling around for so long. Like I said, years and years now, it just kind of joins in this beautiful vibrational frequency. I know it's nothing that we can see, but it is definitely something that we can feel when you gather here with us and kind of get in that groove. There's no denying that there's a connection that goes a little deeper than just, you know, folks on a live stream. I feel so connected to so many folks that join us here. Also, Susan is posting our website there. Thank you, Miss Susan Borkowski, aka Chrysalis Dup. It is a way to book a reading from me or Grim. You can just go in there and book a reading. If you really want it with Grim and you don't see his thing, just write me a little note, and because we're together all the time, we can work it out. And also, if you want to if you want to subscribe to our Purple Door e-zine, which I highly suggest. I love that thing. It is a labor of love for sure, but wonderful
Heavy
information.
on both of those.
Right, right. It's full of stories and recipes and thoughts based on the knowledge of some of our Purple Door witches from our community and our guilds. And so we'd love to have you subscribe. It's only $4.20 a month. Not too bad. And for like 40 some $42, you can
Something like
you can
that.
get a whole year
Yeah,
subscription,
it's
one
$4.
time
It's
payment,
$40.20.
$40.20. There you go. So yeah, so join us there. That's a great way to support what we're doing as well. I see some folks. Christy is saying withstanding, and then Susan said withstanding. Absolutely, those are our hashtags. That means that's, well, you'll figure out what it means. If you know, you know, right?
Oh, look at the pretty wax. They can't see it, but
Oh,
I
it's
bet
about
you
to drip
can.
here. Yes, I can see it.
I say let it go for just another moment.
Oh, they
See.
can see it right down in the bottom of the screen. Drip, drip, drip.
Oh, yeah,
Mesmerizing, eh?
it is. It's filling the petal or the lily up.
I see that. So, Purple Door Witch Wave is on. Wow, look at that! It just like it's it's cooling backwards.
It
That's
is.
so cool. I love wax.
I don't blame you.
Anyways, anyways, um, what was I about to say? I just forgot what I was.
Which way?
Witch Wave. The 28th of every month, we do the Purple Door Witch Wave, which is a meditation and ritual time that we get together with some other folks from this community and just, spend some time together, about an hour doing our meditation.
Somebody sent us
Sometimes
stars too.
Sometimes folks will be asked to bring a candle. I suggest it anyways. Bring a candle and something to write with just in case. I see some of you are going to sleep tonight. Yes, indeed. It is sleepy time here as well.
I don't know who sent us stars, but thank you.
We got some stars. Oh, awesome. And I see Claudia tagged some friends. Claudia, I'm so glad you're here again. It's been wonderful to have you back. I know you're busy like we are, but the thing is we're always all trying to do the same thing. We just keep we just keep doing it. We know that one day it's going to click. Right?
It is going to click.
Yep.
I was hoping it would tell me right here if I were to click on that who gave us the
You can't
stars.
see who gave us stars.
No, so I can thank them personally. But whoever it was, thank you.
Yes, thank you.
I
Yeah, it
do.
doesn't
We do
say who it
appreciate
is.
it.
All right. Well, next week is, Susan says it has been 6 weeks since Grim and I took a reset week, which means that we're going to kind of lay low next week. But you know what? Here's the thing, we might maybe not do every 420 tarot next week, right?
But you can't go a week without doing this,
Well,
can you?
because it's not just I'm feeling good recently.
Oh,
And
I know.
so, like, when I'm feeling good and my energy is up, like, I want to, share time with you all. So I kind of want to make hay while the sun shines. So poor Susan, she said you might want to remind everybody. So I'm going to remind everyone that it is a reset week next week. However, we have some obligations that we are, committed to, like our root and read class. But also, if I'm feeling spunky, don't write me off on 420-ish tea and tarot because I just might drop in on you. So stay prepared. All right, Grim and I, we love y'all. Hope to see you on Monday at 420-ish. And